Friends of no and low code automation, welcome to another video today about the one script that I use in almost all of my Airtable projects and bases, and that is a cleanup script. Maybe you're familiar with what you see here on my screen, which basically is a bunch of empty records that are just hanging around here and never get cleaned up. Airtable Automations currently doesn't have a delete record step, so we need to use a script for that, and we learn how to do that in this video. Let's get into it. Two things before we start. First, make sure to subscribe to this channel if you're interested in no-code automation, low-code automation, or automating your business or personal life with AI. And the second thing, I'm going to do some scripting in this video. If you're interested to learn more about scripting in Airtable, there's a course coming up that I'm recording. Make sure to find the link in the description below. And now let's get started. So today we want to learn how to clean records in Airtable. So as you can see, I have a project tracker here, and a pretty familiar situation in Airtable is that there are empty records at the end of tables. So this can happen if someone just enters data, like enters a new record, maybe it's an accident, maybe forgets to enter some data, and then these records are just hanging around sort of at the end of the table without any data in there. We want to learn how to delete these records periodically and sort of have this cleanup script running to remove that clutter from our tables. The way we do that is we use automations. What I like to do is I like to schedule an automation once a day that will basically run a script in order to clean those records. So let's set a new automation here at a scheduled time. We let this run once a day, and then maybe at 3 a.m. at night. So that's when usually people are not working. So if there's some changes in the table, it doesn't get noticed, basically. Let's also give this a name. Let's call this cleanup script. And now let's get into it. As you can see here, a delete record step doesn't, or action doesn't exist in Airtable automations currently. So we need to use this script. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to get the table. So I always like to get a reference to the table. Airtable has this autocomplete here. Perfect. So base is the base that we're in, and then get table gives us the current table. And then we need to get the records, which we do via the select records async. We can pass some optional parameters here, like fields. And the field we're interested in, we need to know the name. We could also pass the ID there, but let's do it by name, is called task. Why would it make sense to pass the ID here instead of the name? That is so you can make name changes, because the ID is constant, but this name, if I call this task now, then if that changes, this automation wouldn't work anymore, and you would have to adapt that. But for now, for this demo, let's call it task, and let's call this field by name. So what have we done here? We limit the record selection by a certain field. And why do we want to do that? We want to do that because your table could have 50,000 records, right? And gets a lot faster if Airtable doesn't have to pull all those fields as well. So if you have 400 fields and 50,000 records, this step is going to take a long time, basically. What else have we done here? We have an await step. So this is an intense operation, basically getting all those records from Airtable, and we have to wait for that. Is asynchronous, basically. So the rest of the code execution after this will wait for the step, which is also necessary because we want to reference those records that we get back in a later step. What we can also do here is we can say then we get a result, and we can say result.records. So this select records async gives us an object back with two lists, basically record IDs, just a list of all the IDs, and then the records itself, always objects with an ID and a name. And we are just interested in these records. So if we now log what comes back here, you can always use console.log if you want to know more about what you did. And wait, actually, it's on one line. So there we go. We have 9 records in our table. Let's go here, 9, and 3 of those are empty. Now our job is to find those empty ones in order to delete them. So let's do that. The way we can do that is we can filter these records, and we can use let's call this filtered records. We can filter these. Filter is just a method on arrays in JavaScript, and we get a reference to every record. So records filter record. Now we're looping over every record. We could call this whatever we want to call it. And then we can say record.getCellValue task, right? We can now only reference those that we have pulled here. We have only pulled the task field itself, so we can also only get the cell value from the field task. If we do this now, we get basically all those records back that have a value in tasks. So actually the reverse of what we want. So now we get 6 back, right? If I go back to here, we had 9 in total, but these 6 have a value, and those are the ones we have now gotten as a response, which are basically all the records that indeed have a value in task. We want the reverse, and how we do that is we say there where record get cell value task is null. And how do I know that? I know that because what we could do above here is we could map all those cell values. So let me comment this out. And by the way, the shortcut for commenting stuff out, at least on a Mac, is CMD, K, and C. On Windows, probably just Control K and C. And here we go. On the right side, we have all our 9 records mapped with what they have as a value in the task field. And 3 of them have null. So what we're basically doing here, what I've showed you before, is we're looking for every record, and if the value of the task field is null, then we want to include this in the filtered records variable. So if we do this now, we should get 3 records back, those filtered records, and let's wait for them. There we go. So these are now the 3 records. You can also see that they're unnamed because they don't have a name in their primary field, which is task, by the way, as well. So they're unnamed. That's why it says unnamed record here. So now the last step is to delete records. And how do we delete records? We say await table, and then on the table we have all these methods. And you can, by the way, look these things up always here down in this reference, API reference. So if you would, I don't know, say delete records async, you would find that here on the table. So the table has a delete records async, basically exactly the method that is missing from Airtable automations currently. And by the way, there's also a difference between delete record async and delete records async. We want delete records because we want to delete multiple records at a time. And then what we need to pass here is a bunch of record IDs, basically. So if we go down here and we go to the reference, we would also see that. So here it says basically it wants a bunch of record IDs or records actually. But let's pass record IDs. How do we pass record IDs? We basically get those record IDs by saying filtered record IDs. And then we say filter records.map rec.id. So what's map? Map is returning, is going over every item in the array and then returning an array of the same length, but with certain modifications. The modification we've done is we're only giving back the ID of every record. And before that, these objects always had ID and name. So if I'm console logging these filtered record IDs, and let me comment this out, then we get just those record IDs. And this we can now pass to our delete records async method, and this would work. This would basically now delete those 3 records. What I want to do as the last step is um, make this a bit more complicated, but better, because if you would have more than 50 records that get deleted once a day here, this would fail. So you would actually see a failed automation, because delete records async, same with update records async, same with create records async, only accepts up to 50 records at a time. If you pass more than 50 records, it says that's not allowed. That's too many records you want to change at the same time. How do we do that? We batch those requests. And a common way of how to do this is with a while loop. So we can say while filtered records IDs dot length is bigger than 0. So while we still have filtered record IDs, do something. What we want to do is we want to delete records async. We pass the filtered record IDs again, but then we slice them. We slice them from 0 to 50. So we're always sort of feeding the delete records async packages of 50. And if they're less than 50, then it would just give 22 or 28 or however many filtered record IDs we have here. But we're basically passing these packages. And the last thing we need to do then is we need to change our array to actually slice 50 off. So the ones that we have already passed, we're basically removing from the array. And it's shouting at us here and says cannot assign to filtered record IDs because it's constant. That's correct. It is a constant. So let's turn this into something we can change. And once again, as said in the beginning, if you don't understand certain things, watch out for my scripting course, especially for Airtable. So we're going over the entire Airtable API, and there's a little bit of JavaScript, like a basic JavaScript introduction in there as well, coming out end of February. You're watching this now. Now this is recorded January 2024. In the comments below, put your name on the list and you'll be notified. But now back to this. This will now work, and even if this has 10,000 records in it, it would just use these batches of 50 to basically delete them. Let's do one last step here with console log, deleting the following records, just so we can always see what exactly we're doing here. And then, yeah, let's just pass these filtered records here. And now if we do this, let's run this. It sort of gave us what is going to be deleted. And if we go to our table, there we go. These are gone. We can put this automation on, turn it on, and it's going to run every day at 3 a.m. at night. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you have trouble adapting this to your use case. Always like to hear from you. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and see you next time. Happy automating.